Hi, my name is Colleen Myers. I'm a recovering judgmental church lady, and I'm glad you've joined me for this episode of the Smack Dab podcast, living smack dab in the center of God's will. Today, I want to talk about living with eternal purpose. And somewhere along the way in my Christian life, I heard a speaker talk about the dash. What will you do with your dash? And what she was talking about is that little dash between the year of your birth and the year of your death. That little dash there it's huge. And what are you going to do with it? And I just wanted to talk a little bit about that today, about how something we all of us know, life is short, but eternity is going to be very, very long. And so God calls us to live in the light of that eternity, making choices that bring glory and to Him and point others to Jesus. And so really that is the most important thing in our life. That's the most important thing to do with our dash, is to have this eternal perspective, living with eternal purpose, because this life is so short. So there's 3 points that I wanted to make about this here. We want to first seek the kingdom. We want to redeem the time. And we want to know that our labor in the Lord is not in vain. So I'm going to go over those 3 points. The first one, seek the kingdom first. Matthew 6:33 says, "But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well." So Jesus teaches us to put God's kingdom first, not our kingdom, not our whole American dream vision that we're maybe trying to build. We're supposed to put God's kingdom first, trusting Him to provide for our needs. Eternal purpose starts with the right priorities. I had a situation this week. I've been working a second job and trying to decide when to quit that job and just throw myself 110% into my first priority, which is the ministry that I work for. And it's been nice to have this second job to bring in some income. Things are pretty tight, but I've been feeling that God's been calling me to quit that second job, and my husband has confirmed that. And but it was hard for me to pull the trigger on that, And I was praying the night before that I was going to go talk to my supervisor about this and turn in my notice. And I was just struggling, like, really, really, God, it's been really nice to have the extra money, it's sort of like a side hustle. And I heard clearly the Lord say to me, "Colleen, do you want to continue providing for yourself, or would you like me to take that over?" And man, that was like, okay, Lord. And I know that he asked me that question because I was really starting to not seek his kingdom first. It was dividing my time a little bit too much. And I needed to really get my priorities straight again. And so seeking the kingdom first is how we can live with eternal purpose. And I'm not telling you should all go quit your jobs and just do full-time ministry. But if God is calling you to do that, which He has clearly called me to do, then follow His voice and answer His question with a yes, I will do that. So seek His kingdom first. And then number 2, redeem. Oh, let me back up to that too, just because I'm talking about quitting jobs. Make sure that we all understand that the only way to glorify God and fulfill seek His kingdom first, it doesn't mean we all have to become, full-time ministry leaders. Seeking His kingdom first, putting Him first, often means staying in the job where you are now and looking at it from a kingdom-minded perspective, and looking for opportunities to share Jesus with those around you. That is a mission field wherever He has you. So I don't want you to get hung up on just because I'm quitting my second job that you should too. Anyway, I just want to clarify that. Okay, Seek his kingdom first. Next, redeem the time. Ephesians 5:15-16 says, "Be very careful then how you live, not as unwise, but as wise, making the most of every opportunity because the days are evil." So God calls us to live wisely and intentionally. We don't know how much time we have. So every moment counts for eternity. And I've covered this in depth on a past podcast about living intentionally and making the most of every opportunity. But it's so important when we want to live with eternal purpose that we redeem the time. And then know that our labor in the Lord is not in vain. 1 Corinthians 15:58 says, "Always give yourselves fully to the work of the Lord, because you know that your labor in the Lord is not in vain." So even small acts of faithfulness, when done in Jesus' name, are not really truly small. Nothing done for him is wasted. I want to ask you a question. What motivates you to keep serving the Lord, even if it feels unnoticed? I would suggest that what could motivate you to keep doing that, even if no one else is noticing, is to remember that he is noticing. Jesus is noticing that cup of cold water that you gave to that thirsty child. He's noticing those little small acts of kindness and goodness. Ask yourself today, am I living for what will last forever? Or am I living for what is temporary? Somebody shared a story with me one time. I love this story. It's about how this couple was in the process of buying a beautiful home. And it was going to take a month for the purchase to go through, but then after that they were remodeling it so that it could meet their needs and fit their family, and they were getting everything just right. And in the meantime, they rented an apartment to live in. And an interesting thing happened. They started making that apartment just perfect for them. They went out and bought just the right furniture that would fit that apartment. They painted the walls their favorite color. They even paid to install special flooring that they really liked. And it was crazy because they were outfitting this apartment that they were only going to be living in for about two or 3 months, putting all this time and effort in outfitting a very temporary situation. And it actually took time away from the meetings and the appointments they needed to have with the contractors who were remodeling their forever home and their home that was going to be their permanent home. And it just was nonsense, right? It just seems irrational to us when we look at it that way. Maybe we need to start looking at our lives that way. Like, what are we doing when we realize how big and huge and long eternity will be, and how short that little dash between the dates of our birth and our death will be? What are we doing that's really ridiculous, where we're investing so much time and energy on making our lives comfy and cushy and just right? How much money are we investing now in the now, instead of using our money wisely to invest in kingdom things, in eternity, in helping others come to the Lord? How ridiculous. It's kind of a little ridiculous if you think about that apartment versus the forever home situation. And maybe we need to think more about how eternity is where it's all at. That's our forever home. So let's not spend so much time and focus and worry and money on the now. Maybe spend more of that on kingdom things. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Smack Dab podcast, where we focused on living with eternal purpose, seeking the kingdom first, redeeming the time, and realizing that our labor in the Lord is not in vain. Thanks for joining me on this episode of the Smack Dab podcast. Be sure to subscribe and check out our latest episodes.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Smack Dab podcast. If this has been a blessing to you, please consider helping us continue by making a donation to our sponsor at engagetogoministries.com.